Imagine it's December 7th, 1941. The sun is rising over Hawaii, the waters calm, the air filled with the smell of salt and oil. Unknown to the sailors and families waking up on Oahu, a Japanese strike force is steaming just north of Pearl Harbor, preparing to launch the most devastating surprise attack in American history. But here's the twist. What if, just what if, the Japanese fleet had been spotted before the attack? How different would history look today? Let's dive into this alternate timeline. In our reality, a few small signals, like a radar detection and submarine sighting, were ignored. But in this scenario, let's say U.S. reconnaissance planes stumbled upon the Japanese carriers north of Hawaii. Maybe a scout pilot snaps photos, maybe a Navy destroyer intercepts their formation. The fleet is no longer hidden. Now the Americans have hours, maybe even a full day to prepare. That changes everything. The Hawaiian defenses were unprepared historically, with planes parked wingtip to wingtip and ships resting at anchor. But with a warning, the island comes alive. Sirens wail across Honolulu. Anti-aircraft crews scramble to their stations. Fighter pilots race toward their planes. Battleships power up their engines. Pearl Harbor transforms from a sleeping target into a fortress bristling with guns. For Admiral Nagumo, commander of the Japanese fleet, the situation is now dire. His attack was built on total surprise. Without it, his fleet risks disaster. Should he launch anyway, knowing the Americans are ready? Or should he retreat, abandoning the plan that Tokyo spent months preparing? Either choice could change the entire war. Let's imagine Nagumo presses forward. Japanese planes roar off the decks of 6 carriers, heading south toward Oahu. But this time, instead of catching Americans unaware, they meet a sky already filled with American fighters. P-40s, P-36, even a few P-39s. The dogfights are brutal. Without surprise, Japanese Zeros lose their biggest advantage. At Pearl Harbor itself, American battleships like the Arizona, Oklahoma, and West Virginia are no longer sitting ducks. Engines are fired, guns loaded, anti-aircraft batteries blazing. Instead of bombs striking motionless targets, Japanese pilots face a storm of flak. Some bombs hit, but many miss. The attack is still deadly, but nowhere near as devastating. Now here's an overlooked angle. If the Japanese fleet is discovered, American submarines could swarm to intercept. Hawaii had dozens of subs, slow and clumsy compared to Japan's carriers, but deadly if positioned correctly. Imagine torpedoes streaking toward the Japanese carriers, while their planes are mid-attack. A single hit on Akagi, Kaga, or Soryu could cripple Japan's striking power. In real history, Pearl Harbor was a shocking defeat that unified America through anger. But in this alternate history, the story is different. Instead of mourning sunken ships, headlines would scream, "Japanese attack repelled." The U.S. would still enter World War II, but with pride, confidence, and momentum rather than grief. Japan's goal at Pearl Harbor wasn't conquest. It was intimidation. They wanted to cripple America long enough to seize the Pacific. But if the fleet is spotted and defeated, Japan loses its ace before the game even begins. Instead of 6 carriers striking first, they might limp home with 2 or 3 sunk, handing America the advantage months earlier. Think about Midway, 6 months after Pearl Harbor. Historically, it was the turning point when America sank 4 Japanese carriers. But in this alternate reality, that decisive battle could happen right in December 1941 off Hawaii's coast. America might cripple Japan's navy before the war even truly begins. Now zoom out. Across the Atlantic, Hitler is watching. In our timeline, Japan's success at Pearl Harbor emboldened Germany, leading Hitler to declare war on America. But if Japan fails, does Hitler hesitate? Maybe he focuses on Russia, delaying his war with the U.S. The global timeline of World War II could shift dramatically. Another ripple effect: the Soviet Union. In 1941, Stalin's Russia was under brutal attack from Nazi Germany. America's delayed entry gave the Soviets time to suffer enormous losses. But if America enters the war earlier, with its navy intact, could Lend-Lease aid reach Russia sooner? Could the Eastern Front shift earlier in favor of the Allies? Back in the Pacific, Japan's entire island hopping strategy depended on knocking America off balance. If Pearl Harbor isn't devastated, America has carriers, battleships, and logistics ready. Japan might still seize Guam or the Philippines temporarily, but their expansion would stall much faster. The Pacific War would be shorter, bloodier for Japan, and devastatingly lopsided. For Japan's leaders, failure at Pearl Harbor could trigger political chaos. The military junta had staked everything on the attack. Imagine the fallout if 6 carriers return home defeated, thousands of planes and pilots lost, with little to show for it. Could this trigger a coup inside Japan itself? Could moderates rise, seeking peace before America unleashes its full power? Let's not forget the Manhattan Project. In real history, the atomic bomb arrived in 1945, after 4 brutal years of Pacific warfare. But in this alternate timeline, if America defeats Japan's fleet early, does the bomb even need to be dropped? Could the war end conventionally, sparing Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Without the tragedy of December 7th, the phrase, "Remember Pearl Harbor," might not exist. Instead, America's rallying cry could be, "Defend Hawaii," or "Victory at Pearl." The emotional tone of the war shifts from vengeance to pride. That change in narrative echoes for generations, and here's where it gets even bigger. A shorter Pacific War means America finishes World War II earlier. The Soviet Union gains less territory in Asia. Perhaps Korea never splits north and south. Perhaps China's civil war ends differently. The Cold War as we know it might never unfold the same way. One of the darkest consequences of Pearl Harbor was America's decision to use atomic weapons. But if Japan is defeated early and no bloody island-hopping campaign drags on, maybe Hiroshima and Nagasaki are never bombed. Imagine a world where nuclear weapons remain untested in war, their horrors unknown to humanity. Every alternate history is built on a single moment. Here, it's a scout plane spotting the Japanese fleet north of Pearl Harbor. That small act, an alert message received, an officer taking it seriously, could shift the fate of nations. It's a chilling reminder of how fragile history is, how close we came to different futures. So, what if the Japanese fleet had been spotted north of Pearl Harbor? Maybe the Pacific War ends years earlier. Maybe millions of lives are saved. Maybe the Cold War looks completely different. Or maybe fate finds another way to drag humanity into conflict. History is never inevitable. It's built on choices, on chances, on moments where one decision reshapes the entire world.